y'all, welcome back to Homemade Simple. If we've not met before, I'm Lori. I'm really glad you're here today, and I'm really excited about this week's video. I am going to share a week-long meal plan to feed your family for $50. I'm really hopeful that when I go into the store, I can find all of the things that I need. Sometimes there's some hiccups along the way, and I'll have to figure out what to do on the fly, but I have my meal list, I have my grocery list. That's really important when you're on a tight budget, to make sure that you plan ahead and you stick to your plan. So I'm going to run in and see what I can find. Hopefully I'll find everything on the list. Let's go and see if we can make this for less than $50. Okay, here is our grocery haul. We have our dairy and our protein, pantry items, and some veggies. I think I have a good plan ready for the week. So here is the rundown about the cost. The total cost before tax ended up being about $54.45, which was a little more than I was hoping, but I bought an entire pound of butter. I don't think we're gonna need all of the butter, so half of that is $1.50. I think there's a couple of items that we're not going to completely use. I did also buy some cumin. We're gonna use a few more spices this week, but I did want to account for that cost. So this was another $1. I don't think we're going to use all of the flour. I don't think we're going to use all of the peanut butter or the jelly. So I do think that all in all, this is going to be a less than $50 meal plan. But if you have to buy all of these items, it is, at least with my pricing, it ended up being just a little over $54. So that's where we're starting. I feel like if I can feed my family of 5 for even $55 for a week, that is going to be a really good win for the budget. You will notice that there's not a lot of fluff here. There's not a lot of snack items, no drinks or anything like that except for the milk. The reason I did that was because when you are on such a tight budget, there's only so much that you can do, and we're just not going to be able to have a lot of room for a lot of variety of snacks. We'll go through some options and some things that we're going to make this week. I'm going to make all of the dinners. I'm going to show you the ideas for the breakfasts and the lunches that are represented in these groceries. So let's get started making our breakfasts, and then we will go to lunches and then dinners. Sorry about this, but I had a little glitch with my camera and I thought I was recording making the pancakes, mixing everything together, but I wasn't. So I'm just gonna have to talk you through it. I used for this recipe 1 cup of flour, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I mixed in 3/4 cup of milk and 1 egg. I mixed all of that well, let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes while the skillet was heating with the butter. And now I'm just going to cook them each for a few minutes on the first side, and then when it starts to bubble and the bubbles begin to pop, you know that that is when the pancakes are ready to flip. After the pancakes are flipped one time, they normally will cook on the bottom a lot quicker, so maybe a minute will go by and then they'll be ready for the next batch. So cook these in batches until they're all done. If I was going to make these again, I would double this recipe because there weren't quite enough that morning for my family. So if you have more than 4 people, you probably want to double the recipe. Normally when we have pancakes, we like to have maple syrup, but a $50 budget does not allow for maple syrup. So what we're going to do is add a little bit of butter, and instead of using syrup to add a little bit of sweetness, I'm going to top these with some strawberry jelly. This is something that my mom used to do for me when I was little. She would put sour cream and jelly. Actually, I think she would include some cottage cheese, but we don't have that in the budget this week either. This is going to be sort of a throwback recipe to my childhood. If you want to scramble some eggs, I think we'll have plenty of eggs. We bought 2 dozen to add a little bit of protein. We have bought some bananas, so I'm going to add half a banana to each plate, and then we'll be ready to eat. The main thing that we're going to have for our breakfast this week is oatmeal. Oatmeal is super simple and really satisfying. All you have to do is add 1/2 cup of oats and 1 cup of water for each serving. So if you're going to make 2 servings, you will double that. And put it in the microwave for about 2 minutes or so. I like to add a little bit of brown sugar to mine. I'm going to serve lanes with some bananas this morning. And now it's about time for us to move on to our lunches. One really valuable way to reduce the cost of a weekly grocery budget is to be able and willing to make a lot of the convenience foods that you find in the store. Make them from scratch instead at home and save that convenience price. So today I'm going to make several loaves of bread, and these are going to be used for our breakfasts, mostly for our lunches, and for a dinner or 2. But I'm going to start by making 2 loaves of bread this week. I may end up having to make more, but this 2 loaves will give us a really good start. To make the bread, I'm going to start with 2 cups of really hot water and add 1/4 cup of butter, 1 cup of oats, 1/2 cup brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 tablespoon or 1 packet yeast. I'm going to stir all that together, and then I'm going to add 5.5 cups of flour. I'm going to stir that around a little in the bowl to get it incorporated, and then I'm going to begin to knead it for a total of about 8 minutes or so. Then it's time to place it into a bowl and allow it to rise for about 2 hours. After the first rise, I'm going to dump it out of the bowl and divide the dough in half. I didn't do a very good job of dividing it perfectly in half, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Both loaves turned out just fine. I'm going to form each half into a loaf shape and place it into a greased loaf pans and allow this to rise a second time for about 1.5 hours or 2 hours. Then I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes until it's nice and brown on the top. Make sure that you allow these to cool completely on a cooling rack so that the bottom doesn't get too soggy. It's lunchtime, and for our lunches we're going to have sandwiches. I bought peanut butter and I bought jelly. And we have made our bread. So simple, easy, straightforward lunch. But the peanut butter is going to have plenty of protein to keep everybody full throughout the afternoon, and then the jelly is just going to make things a little more enjoyable. I know that grape jelly is more traditional. I don't really know why I got strawberry, so anyway, any kind of jelly is good. Maybe you have these ingredients in your pantry, and if so, that's really good. You can save on this as well. I know that sandwiches are best with things like apples or potato chips. We don't have those this week. I didn't pick those up in the budget. So rice is the best I could come up with. If you don't like rice, then you can just skip that and just have a sandwich or maybe 2 sandwiches to compensate for not having the rice. But in this kind of situation, what we're trying to do is keep everybody full, and if we can keep people full, then we will have succeeded in our goal. So I know that rice is a little unconventional, but it will do for now, and everybody should be full and satisfied until dinner time. Now we're ready to move on to our dinners, and our first dinner is going to be a chicken and rice dinner that we're going to cook on the stovetop, but you can cook this in the crock pot if you do not want to use your stove. I'm going to start with 1/2 cup of flour, and to the flour I'm going to add 4 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to stir that together really well until it is nice and combined. I'm going to add 1 cup of rice, 2 teaspoons of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper. Also add 1 of our cooked chicken breast. Simmer this on the stove for about 30 minutes, just until the rice is tender and ready to eat. This is a really good meal, especially if you have a summer cold. You can probably tell that I'm a little nasally this week. I have been fighting a cold. I think meals like this really help us get better quicker. But sick or not, this is a really delicious and inexpensive meal. Our next recipe is a chicken tortilla casserole that can also be made in the crock pot if you choose to, but I cooked it in the oven. I'm going to start with 1 of our chicken breasts already cooked and shredded. I'm going to add 4 cups of cooked rice. This was a lot of rice, so if you want to have that, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to add 1 large can of crushed tomatoes, 1 can of cream style corn, a tablespoon of cumin, and a tablespoon of chili powder. I'm going to mix everything together. I'm going to set that mixture aside, and I'm going to cut up some tortilla strips. I'm going to butter my casserole dish, and then I'm going to layer these tortillas. I'm going to add half of the chicken and rice mixture, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cheese. Top the cheese with another layer of tortillas, and then pour on the rest of the chicken and rice mixture. I'm going to top that with the rest of the cheese, and then cover it with aluminum foil and bake it in a 350-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. This was a really easy and delicious meal. I hope that your family will like it too. For the cost, it's packed full of nutrients and very filling. Our next meal is going to be barbecue chicken nachos. I'm really excited that I was able to fit this meal into one of my extreme budget videos because it is actually one of my favorite dinners. I'm going to begin by seasoning 1 of our chicken breasts in the air fryer. I'm going to season it with chili powder, paprika, cumin. I'm going to spray it with a little bit of oil or butter, and then put it in the air fryer to cook at 370 degrees for about 20 minutes. While the chicken's cooking, I'm going to chop up a tomato and half of the head of lettuce. And when the chicken is cooked completely, I'm going to remove the bone and then shred the chicken, and then it's time to make each of the plates. I'll begin by adding some tortilla chips, then the chicken. I'm going to add lettuce, cheese, and then the tomatoes. I'm going to top it with sour cream, and then my favorite ingredient, barbecue sauce. This is a really good meal. Not only is it delicious, but it is a very frugal meal. Tonight we're going to have chickpea pasta salad. This was an idea that I had to sort of have a more summer-friendly menu, and it just seemed like pasta salad was a good thing to add to the menu plan this week, because it does use fresh garden vegetables that a lot of us will have access to for free. And also it uses more inexpensive ingredients, but it doesn't have to be cooked in the oven and will keep our kitchens from getting too hot. So I'm going to cook 1 pound of pasta and cut up 1 tomato. I have these cucumbers that are from my garden and they need to be used up. I'm going to use these in this recipe. If you don't have access to fresh cucumbers, you can totally leave them out of this recipe. As a matter of fact, my family are not huge fans of cucumbers, so they will probably end up getting picked out anyway, but I didn't want them to go bad. Okay, to put our pasta salad together, I have our cooked pasta. I'm gonna add that to the bowl. I have 1 can of garbanzo beans or chickpeas. I have drained them and rinsed them. I'm gonna add those. I have 1 tomato. I'm gonna add that. 2 small cucumbers from my garden. That wasn't included in our $54. So if you don't have those cucumbers, that's okay. And then I have this Italian dressing. Now you can, if you have olive oil and lemon juice at home, you can just use that instead of buying the Italian dressing. But it was going to be cheaper for me to buy this Italian dressing than it would be for me to buy the ingredients to make that dressing. So I'm just going to stir all of this together. Whoops. This is one of those nice summer evening meals that's not going to be too heavy and is not going to be hot. We're going to chill this, so it's going to be nice and cool and a pleasant meal to end the day with. If you have Parmesan cheese, that would be great to add to this. If you have basil growing in your garden, that would be great to add to this. We're gonna have it just like this, and I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator to chill for about 30 minutes. Okay, it's chilled in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. It probably could use another 30, but my family is going to revolt if we don't eat it soon. So I'm gonna serve it up just like this in a bowl. And if you have some leftover chicken from last night's dinner, that would also be really good in here. It's got plenty of protein, plenty of carbs, it's got our vegetables, and I think that this is going to be a really yummy and satisfying dinner. For tonight's dinner, we're gonna have a spicy chicken and rice dinner, and we're gonna make it in the slow cooker. But the first thing that we're gonna do is make some enchilada sauce. So I'm gonna take 1 tablespoon of butter. I'm gonna heat that up. That butter has melted, so I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of flour. And I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of chili powder and 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, this has heated for about 2 minutes. I'm going to slowly add 2 cups of our reserved broth, and I'm really going to try to get these lumps out. I'm going to turn the heat back on. I'm going to whisk this really fast until I can get all of the clumps out. And then I'm going to leave it to simmer. So I'll leave this to thicken for probably 10 minutes or so. I'm going to stir it frequently. And then we'll get on to adding all of our ingredients to the crock pot. Alright, now we're ready to put our ingredients in the crock pot. So I have 1 split chicken breast that I have deboned and shredded. I'm going to add our enchilada sauce to that, and I'm going to add 1 cup chicken broth. This chicken broth was just reserved from when I cooked the chicken. I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of uncooked rice, 1 can of black beans that have been rinsed and drained, 1 can of diced tomatoes with chilies, and 1 can of cream style corn. I actually meant to buy the regular corn, but I picked up the wrong kind. Mix all of that together and set this on low to cook throughout the day. And as soon as the rice is done, this meal will be ready to eat. I think this is going to be more soupy than I expected it to be. I'm going to serve this in a bowl, but I do think that all of these flavors are going to be really good together. Sort of a Southwest crock pot meal, and I think it's going to be really good. Tonight we're going to make some French toast using those really inexpensive eggs that I found at Aldi. But first of all, we're going to start by making our own syrup. We didn't have money in the budget to have a bottle of syrup, either regular syrup or maple syrup or honey. So what we're going to do is make our own. If you have some in your pantry, you can skip this step. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of butter, and I'm going to let that melt. Okay, that's melted, so I'm going to add 1 cup of packed brown sugar and 1 cup of water. I'm going to stir that together, and then I'm just going to let this simmer on the stove until it cooks down and becomes a little thicker. It can be simmering while we're making our French toast. These eggs were $1.02 per dozen, so I got 2 dozen, so we can have several for breakfast, and we can use them in several other recipes throughout the week. But I thought that this was a really good way to get a good bang for our buck, making our own bread. Having these inexpensive eggs is really gonna help our budget to go further. I'm gonna start with 6 eggs and 10 pieces of bread. I'm gonna add about 1/2 cup of milk, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and scrambled. Okay, I have some butter melting in my skillet. I'm sure y'all know how to make French toast, so this is not to insult your intelligence. This is just for video footage. So I'm gonna soak that in. Try not to soak it too long because it gets way too soggy. I think I'll just cook 2 at a time. That way the pan is not overcrowded. You can also make egg in a hole, egg in a basket, whatever your mom called it when you were growing up. But just like taking a regular piece of bread and cutting a hole in the middle and putting an egg in the middle and then frying it. That's another good way to use these 2 ingredients together to make a really good, nourishing, but very inexpensive meal. So you could do that for breakfast one morning, or for dinner one evening, even for lunch. When they are cooked through on both sides, you can just move them to a serving plate, add some more butter to your skillet, and then start the process all over. Well, our French toast turned out really good, and the syrup made quite a bit more than I expected it to, so that is really good. I think you'll be really happy with the way this turns out. It is an incredibly frugal meal, but it's also going to be one of your kids' favorites. Now we're gonna make our pizza, and so I'm gonna start by making our pizza sauce. I have 1 small can of tomato sauce. I'm gonna pour that all in. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons brown sugar, a little bit of salt, and a tablespoon of Italian seasoning if you have that. I'm gonna mix this until it's well combined. Set that to the side. I'm gonna put 2 large tortillas, and they just overlap just a little, so that will be fine. I'm gonna spread plenty of sauce on each tortilla, and this will just be preference. How much do you like? But we have 4 tortillas left, In that casserole, I really could have done with just cutting up 3 tortillas. Could just use the strips that I have as like a little small pizza for Lane, which I think I will do that. I have my mozzarella cheese, and I've cooked and drained breakfast sausage. Sprinkle that on the pizzas. I'm going to put these in a 425-degree oven for about 8 minutes until all of the cheese is melted. I think these turned out really good. I think they're going to taste really yummy and going to be another kid favorite this week. So I don't think that the kids are going to be able to tell that we are working on an extreme grocery budget. I sure have enjoyed sharing this video with you this week. My goal is to help you make the most of your family's food budget so that you can eat wonderfully healthy and nutritious food at the lowest cost possible. If you are struggling with food insecurity, I hope that you will visit your local food bank. There are numerous resources available to you if you need extra help to get yourself back on your feet. Make sure that you reach out to those local organizations that are there to help you and your family. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I really hope that you will do that, and I hope that you will be willing to share your suggestions for frugal, summer-friendly meals in the comment section below. You can also check out my Patreon account if you're interested in being a monthly supporter of Homemade Simple. I really appreciate the support that we receive there as well. Please don't be a stranger. Come back next week. I will have another fun and exciting video ready for you. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. I love you, and I will see you again next time.